Hello. In this video, we're going to be talking about what happens when we have to do cellular respiration without any oxygen, which is called anaerobic cellular respiration. Before we do that, I wanted to just briefly review just regular cellular respiration and its purpose. So basically, it is necessary for every cell to be able to do, both plants and animals. We need to be able to take glucose and break it down into ATP because ATP is the energy that our cells use. So yes, plants can create that glucose, they still need to be able to break it down. Animals eat the glucose and we have to break it down in our cells into ATP. And respiration, sometimes people think of breathing, but breathing is only a part of cellular respiration. It's actually just the exchange of gas. So yes, we take in the oxygen that we use for cellular respiration with breathing, but you also have to take in the glucose, which we have to eat instead of just breathe like we do for oxygen. So the different types of cellular respiration is just the regular type, which is aerobic, and that is when we have oxygen present in our cells, and it makes approximately 36 to 38 ATP. And the point of it is to make energy for your body. So making 36 to 38 ATP, it happens in the mitochondria. And the equation is just our regular glucose plus oxygen is equal to carbon dioxide, water, and energy. The other type is anaerobic cellular respiration. So this is what happens when we have no oxygen present in the cells. And this time we only make 2 ATP. So this is why we only do this process if it's absolutely necessary when there's no oxygen present, because we only get 2 ATP. It's obviously not as efficient as a process, and we only use it when we absolutely need to. So we still need to make energy, but maybe there's not oxygen in there. We only make 2 ATP. It happens only in the cytoplasm of the cell, and the equations are right here. So there are two different types of anaerobic. The first type makes alcohol. So we take glucose and we break it into alcohol and carbon dioxide. The other type is called lactic acid, where we take glucose and we break it into lactic acid. So anaerobic cellular respiration is when oxygen is not there. So this could be when you're running a marathon and you run out of oxygen because your heart can't keep up with how fast you're moving, and the blood in your body just can't make it to the cells as quickly as you need it to. So your cells just in a pinch have to do this. This also could be a bacteria or yeast or plant cell that's maybe in a closed container that has no oxygen present because they've used it all up. And it makes 2 ATP. It's not quite as efficient because we kind of just use it when we don't have oxygen present. And this happens in the cytoplasm. So alcohol fermentation, we usually talk about it happening in yeast, but it could happen in other things as well. And muscle fermentation or lactic acid fermentation, usually we talk about it happening in the muscles, but again, it could happen in other things as well. So our very first type that we're going to talk about is the alcohol fermentation. So if you've ever eaten bread, you've drank an alcoholic beverage, or had apple cider, you've experienced this type of fermentation. Can you remember that this happens when there's no oxygen present? So we start with glucose and we break it into 2 pyruvic acid molecules. In that process, this is basically glycolysis, so it would be happening in our cytoplasm. We would make 2 ATP. Now, in normal cellular respiration, we would go into the intermediate step and we would make carbon dioxide and acetyl-CoA, and we would do that process. But unfortunately, because oxygen isn't present, we would not be able to do this process properly. So instead of making acetyl-CoA, we make ethanol alcohol and we make carbon dioxide, and that's the end of the process. It doesn't go into the mitochondria, and we don't make any further ATP except for those 2 that we make in glycolysis. So obviously we don't want to do this unless we absolutely have to, because if you can go into the mitochondria and make way more ATP, obviously our cells would do that. The other type of anaerobic cellular respiration is lactic acid formation. So if you've worked out for a really long period of time and you feel really, really sore after, okay, you've gone through this process. Maybe your legs are sore, you've cramped up, okay, you've experienced this lactic acid build up. So again, this process happens when there's no oxygen present in the cell. So again, we start with glucose, we go through glycolysis and make 2 pyruvic acid or pyruvates, and we produce 2 ATP. Again, we cannot go further into the intermediate step to make acetyl-CoA and then eventually go into the mitochondria, do the Krebs cycle and the electron transport chain and make a whole bunch more ATP. So with the pyruvic acid, we don't want to just leave it there. We want to make something with it. So they basically convert it into lactic acid, also known as lactate. So those are our two processes of anaerobic cellular respiration. And you do need to know how to draw kind of the general flow chart for them. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, please ask me any questions that you have. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.